Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, devils, vassals, minions. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And today I want to talk about Ukraine and MH17. And I've held off doing this video, and because I like to let everybody else kind of go through all the gyrations. There's so much speculation going on, such a wall of noise, of propaganda out there. And as my regulars know, I kind of like to see something substantial before I step into the fray. Plus, there's so much noise out there about this. But, of course, this conversation started a while ago with one of my regulars, one of my subscribers. Hello, Cool. And we have already talked about what our views were, and both of us have been redeemed because, for the most part, it looks like the obvious that the Ukraine did it is the most likely scenario. And the main reason is just they have the most to gain from it. The rebels shooting it down, they have nothing to gain. The Russians involved in shooting it down, they have nothing to gain. But Ukraine has everything to gain, and they've jumped into the propaganda war full force, even referring to it as their own 9/11, which is preposterous in every respect. And then we also have the fact that Kiev has already produced one fake video as evidence, so we know they can't be trusted. And pretty obviously, the Ukraine government can't be trusted anyway because it's basically a group of puppets, an ex-central banker, and a bunch of thugs. They've certainly proven that in the field in this assault on Ukraine. But let's get back to MH17 and the basic reasons why I'm fairly confident now to say that the facts have come forward that paint the most likely scenario. First of all, we have the Spanish controller, aviation controller, who was in Kiev at the time, and he saw two Ukrainian fighters in the immediate vicinity. So that's interesting in itself. And then he even came out and said, apparently on his Twitter account, that he claimed it was not an accident, that the Ukrainian authorities shot down MH17 and were trying to make it look like an attack by pro-Russians. Many of his details have even been confirmed by Malaysia and Russia. So we have that. So we have now that piece of evidence, and then we have the German aviation expert who's come out now. He's examined the damage to the plane. His name is Peter Hysenko, and he says he's analyzed the damages and says that it is consistent with an air-to-air missile that was shot down by a jet. And there's all these attachments I'm talking about are below if you want to look at these closer. And then we also have a woman in Sloviansk describing Ukrainian jets hiding along passenger planes before making strikes on the ground. And then that is cross-referenced and confirmed by a censored BBC report. Every witness there described seeing Ukrainian military aircraft alongside MH17. And as it turns out, there's lots of confirmations by the rebels that this was a tactic that the Ukrainian Air Force had used before. Not only does it shield the knowledge that the planes are there, but they can also block themselves from being fired upon from the ground. Let's remember, numerous Ukrainian aircraft have been downed by the rebels. And so fake videos, all these different accounts, all describing a similar thing, two Ukrainian jets, and that seems the more likely scenario. And then we have the after events. We have the Russians releasing their satellite imagery, and yet the United States won't release their satellite data. And Russia knows that the United States had a satellite in position, and so what is America hiding by not producing these satellite images? Pretty glaring inconsistency, consistency only in being likely to be accused of a cover-up. Then we also have fake videos appearing now of Russian military supposedly firing artillery into Ukraine, and then we also had fake videos of the Buck system being moved, missile system being moved from Ukraine to Russia. All these fakes. And once again, who has the most to gain by producing all these fakes and covering up this event? And it's also been established that it was shot down in a town called Krasnoyarsk, and that was under Ukrainian military control at the time. This new onslaught, well on its way, and the classic tactic we see here being used by the United States and Ukraine, instantly blaming the desired opponents in order to get political gain, and that's before any evidence comes in. And it's a tactic that we see over and over and over again, and it always continues to work effectively. And before anybody has time really to sort out the realities become a moot point because the desired political outcome has already been achieved. And we see that in the demonizing of Russia and Putin. And I'm going to do a separate video on that. But and we have all these other anomalies that also point to the Ukraine and not to the rebels. And I don't want to preclude the idea that the Ukrainians could have shot it down by mistake. And potentially, in spite of everything I'm talking about now, there's a potential that it was accidentally shot down by the rebels. But like I say, generally the evidence seems to be lining up that the Ukrainians shot it down, and a lot of that has to do with the analyzation by the German aviation expert looking at the damage in the plane, more consistent with an air-to-air strike than a ground-to-air strike. And then we have Kiev air traffic and instructed the flight to the lower altitude, which is fairly damning evidence. And then we also know that someone changed the flight path, which is also damning evidence. And the Russian satellite images that they provided, which the United States images would undoubtedly confirm, is that there were Ukrainian warplanes in that region. And also Kiev's anti-air missiles in the region, just in case we need a backup story. And the U.S., like I say, is not supplying that evidence, so that pretty much speaks volumes. But like I say, the Ukraine is benefiting from this. The U.S. narrative in the Ukraine is benefiting from this, and that makes the motive clear. And as in 9/11, being in on it is not necessary because in any case, the result is an opportunity to be exploited, a crisis not to be wasted, to quote Rahm Emanuel. And this is what we see now. And the politicization of this whole episode is quite a spectacle and disgusting on every level, and particularly for the fate of the people on the plane and their families that have to go through this and see essentially their grief dragged through the mud of Ukraine. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.